Next, we'll go to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Dixon, are you ready to take point on these? I believe there's 4 items.
I am. Thank you so much, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, board members and staff and those online listening in. We will start with acknowledgement of student artwork with Kathy Jensen.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Superintendent and Chair Huntsman. I'm hoping that the presentation can be shown or I can be given sharing rights. That was sent in.
Jerry, can you enable sharing rights, or whoever is driving? Looks like it's still disabled.
Yeah, I got that.
Thank you.
There we go. The Utah State Board of Education arts team has had the opportunity to see art in the elementary schools and high schools from St. George to Logan in the past few days. We are really excited about that, and I am having trouble making it advance. Arrows aren't going. So sorry. There we go. In Washington School District, we visited 8 schools in one day on April 12th. Many were music classrooms where the students were engaged in standards-based learning. Part of that was keeping a steady beat. And they also learned about musical sounds and created their own musical sounds to accompany their books that they were studying in English language arts. They learned the important role of each individual and the power of working together. In the Cache County School District, at the other end of the state, at the north end of the state, we visited the Cache County School District Celebration of the Arts on March 18th at Ridgeline High School. This evening included drama and music performances as well as art exhibits from all schools across all grades. Here are some of the elementary art pieces in the exhibit. Students gained experience with 3D sculpture, 2D art in the style of Georgia O'Keeffe, and creativity with common objects like license plates. Back to the Wasatch Front, Lone Peak Elementary School in the Canyon School District held their spring art night. It is a BTS art school, and they showed integration and collaboration as well as creativity with these wonderful butterflies and the study across grades and across subjects. The butterflies were fluorescent under black lights and will be hanging in the boardroom. At Dry Creek Elementary in the Alpine School District, students created sculptures of famous figures. They exhibited much personal choice and were able to make personal connections by who they chose. Look at all the detail that is in these. If you look really close, you might see that Dr. Seuss's body is filled with oatmeal. If you were to make an art sculpture of a famous person, who would you choose? Again, from Dry Creek, the halls were filled with various art mediums, styles, and integration. Look at these wonderful multimedia creations of trees, flowers, birds, and bees, then the exploration of the emotion through cartooning. This one really pulled at my heartstrings. This again was from Dry Creek Elementary. Kindergarten students each created their individual sunflower with real sunflower seeds in the center. Then they attached them together to make a heart on the flag of Ukraine. Utah State Board of Education will be honoring top-notch arts educators tonight at the Sorensen Legacy Awards for Excellence in Arts Education after 2 years delay due to COVID. We're excited to honor those art teachers this evening during Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. We'll move on to our Employee of the Month. And I am really excited, always, I love this so much. I'm very excited to introduce you to Lisa McLaughlin, and I think Lisa's online somewhere. Lisa is just so beloved, and she joined the licensing team about 2 years ago. And you might recall, she stepped into a role, for those of you that came onto the board 2 years ago. You may not have really noticed this huge transition, but it was a big lift where so much in licensing had been changed. I used to joke and say there were 240 different ways to get a license, and we tried to streamline that down to 2 or 3. But this huge shift was the time that of fluctuation that Lisa was tasked to help implement a brand new licensing program, and also the Apple program, which is the big part of it that she has been helping LEAs with, and really reviewing and approving their files and using Qualtrics and rolling out the new Grow Your Own program, which she helped lead. And now she's co-lead of our strategic plan strategy 2C, which works on monitoring and evaluating educator preparation programs. So she's been working very closely with our universities and our LEAs as they prepare teachers, making sure that they comply with board rule. And she is just known for being so professional. When I'm out and about, people talk about Lisa and they just sing her praises. She's precise on detail and really can see inconsistencies, but she doesn't just say, well, you're not compliant. She really works hard to make sure that that people in the field get the help they need, both the educators and the program. So she has spent this last year also training Judd, a guide dog for the visually impaired. And as part of that training and bringing Judd to work from time to time, it just brightened everybody's day. So Lisa is an outstanding human being. We just are so appreciative that she works with us. You'll see, I think Darren is fully smiling, Assistant Superintendent Nelson, but when we were singing her praises, he had this interesting look because he lost her as part of the assessment team to come to licensing, and he too knows how wonderful she is. So it was a really fun day to honor her and brag on her as we took this picture and gave her special rewards of her parking space and other things. So Lisa, congratulations. We're so proud to have you as part of the team. And if you are on camera and can wave, I don't know if she's in the room.
Thank you.
There she is. Yeah, congratulations to Lisa. And now we'll turn the time over to Michelle Watts. We have some new employees.
Good morning. Thank you, Superintendent. I'll be introducing the new employees from March and April. Scroll down. Thank you. Kaylin Burns, the financial analyst 2, and he previously worked as a loan officer assistant for Simplify Home Loans. Kim Busser works as a child nutrition specialist and previously worked as a data resource coordinator. Terry Davis, educational specialist, PE curriculum content specialist, previously worked as adapted PE in Provo School District. Quincy Bear, financial analyst for the minimum school program, previously worked as a commission analyst for Synergy. Alicia Roseman, purchasing agent 3, previously worked as a buyer 2 for Utah Valley University. Scott Crapo, fiscal monitor for school fees, and previously worked at erosion control supervisor at GTM Builders. Cliff Tilleen, project and portfolio manager for IT, and was a product owner at PlanSource. And Heather Newell, school improvement specialist, was a principal at Backman Elementary in Salt Lake City School District. Welcome to our new employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We are so lucky to get the best employees and really appreciate them joining our office. All right, I am going to riff a bit on the great comments that were made by Vice Chair Davis, but I do want to start. Let's see. Jerry, I think that needs to be taken down, so I'm going to override you here and share my screen. Okay. Excuse me. Really not choked up in an emotional way. I may be in a minute. Sorry. So, as is my my very strategic habit with my board remarks each month, I really want to highlight our Portrait of a Graduate, goals in our strategic plan, the strategies. I think it's really important that we hold ourselves accountable and bring to you how these things are occurring in our agency and in our school system. So today I want to talk about the P in our Utah map of mastery, autonomy, and purpose, and talk about specifically service. I've been seeing so many different highlights in the media of service happening in our schools, and there's a lot of research around service. As a board, you've defined this characteristic in our Portrait of a Graduate as one where we teach students to seek opportunities to help when assistance is needed and act without expecting compensation or recognition. I think service is such a great way to connect and support our families, connecting them to schools through these service projects, connecting students one to another with students they may not be familiar with or hang out with, and then connecting them to an opportunity to do something for the greater good outside of themselves. And we really see the benefit of service in our schools. And I think it happens in almost every school. Kathy shared some artwork in support of Ukraine, and we've really seen an uptick in some of the service projects that are targeted at helping refugees in the crisis situation in Ukraine. So I want to highlight just a couple of these. And first of all, I want to say that as we look at purpose as part of our Utah map, it's not without mastery and autonomy. As I listen to these stories about the service that's happening, kids are writing letters, for example, to children in the Ukraine, and there are mastery skills that they have to master in order to do that well. As they're creating projects and thinking about budgets, they're using things that they've learned in mathematics, and they're problem solving and using creative thinking, life skills. So all of these elements of mastery, which is first and most important, autonomy, learning how to learn, and then finding purpose are also interconnected. And I think service is a good way to show how all of those play out. So here's some pictures of the picture on the left. You'll hear a little bit about the lunchtime activities happening in some schools in Alpine District, where kids come together during their lunch and tables are set up so they can knit, crochet, tie quilts, put humanitarian kits together. The picture in the middle happens to highlight the JROTC Club and other students at Wasatch High School who were working in the Community Christian Center in Park City and helping with food bank and putting Easter baskets together for students who might have been sheltered, unsheltered, and just needing additional assistance. And
Superintendent Dixon, I
Yes.
apologize for interrupting. Could you please share your screen? It looks like the old screen did come down, but we do not see what you're addressing.
Thank you for letting me know. That's, thank you. It looked like it was sharing on my screen, but I didn't hit share. Let's try that again. Okay.
We've got it.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know. That might be why my wrist was buzzing and I wasn't paying attention. Okay. Thank you, Sybil. So just highlighting where you can see this service as part of the Portrait of a Graduate. Okay, so you were probably seeing the list, and now these pictures make more sense to you. I'll just land on that for a minute. All right, this is in backup, and this is probably what you were seeing on your screen. And rather than going through each of these, you will note that these are from elementary to high school. And I do want to call out a couple of them. What you have on Civic Clerk, so the public can see it as well as you as board members, you have a little synopsis of each one of these, and then there's a link to the actual story if there's something that you want to click on or put in your browser to learn more about this project. Mark Peterson, I call him our resident librarian, or sometimes I call him Detective Peterson. He's so great at finding things and putting them together. And he curated this list from specific stories that have been posted in media recently. And he said, make sure that you call the happiness hotline from Weber School District, kindergarten and first graders. And I did. I would encourage you to call the happiness hotline. You have many choices. I think I clicked on 4 for the joke of the day and got a cute little kindergarten joke or 2. So I would encourage you, if you need a moment of happiness, to call the happiness hotline. But there are a lot of great opportunities for service that students have engaged in throughout this state, and I wanted to highlight some of these for you. Shifting gears a bit, I want to introduce you to a woman I met a couple of days ago. Her name is Andrea Verkich, and I asked her permission to share her story with you. She is an executive director at Morgan Stanley. I was attending a task force meeting for supporting new Americans. And she told her story that I thought was so compelling. Andrea and her family moved to, they were in Yugoslavia, and they were trying to escape the Civil War back in the early 90s. And her father put she and her little brother and their mother on a bus, and they went to Germany. And she was 5 years old at the time, so they were in Germany for a couple of years. Her father had been a small business owner and was driving a forklift just to put food on the table in Germany. And they wanted to come to America for a better life, and did some research and found that Utah had good support for immigrants. And so they found their way to Utah. And she told the story of being in 2nd grade and at Horizon Elementary in Murray School District, and not speaking any English. So that's quite prevalent today in many of our schools, including at Horizon, but at the time it was more of an anomaly. So she spoke some German. Of course, she had her home language, and then she had picked up German as a young child. So her teacher, with her own money, went and bought Andrea a English-German translation dictionary, and she would leave little notes for her and just help her feel cared about and encourage her as she was learning language and assimilation into American schools and into Horizon specifically. The school secretary had a son who'd been on an LDS mission to Germany, so he volunteered to come and teach her after school and teach her English language. By the time she got to 5th grade, her English was improving and her writing was improving, but her teacher found out that she had quite a number sense and really interested in mathematics, but couldn't quite navigate the language with some of it. So she found a tutor for her to come and tutor Andrea after school in mathematics, and she became quite skilled. As she moved through her schooling years and went to high school, she definitely wanted to go to college, and her school counselor tapped into her desire and helped her enroll in concurrent enrollment courses, so that by the time she left high school, she had an associate's degree, free associate's degree in business, and was able to graduate in business. And now she's an executive director at Morgan Stanley as a young woman. And so I tell you this story because she credited teachers and counselors and school secretaries along the way to help her on her journey of achieving the American dream. And that's really what we see in our teachers today. It's part of the purpose of schooling is really just focusing on the one and helping them get the resources that they need. And that's always how I identify equity. It's how the board has identified equity, is helping students get the resources they need in the moment that they need it. And I thought she was such a great example of that. So to riff a little bit on Vice Chair Davis and be able to share appreciation for our teachers and the staff who surround our students, I want you all to take a minute and think of one of your most influential teachers, and then put their name in the chat along with one sentence or phrase about how they impacted you. So the example I shared is Mrs. Bowler. She told me I was smart and needed to put more energy into producing quality work. So if you'll take a moment to think about one of your most influential teachers, and I think the chat is enabled, so you can put your answers in the chat. So list your favorite teacher and or an influential teacher, and just a phrase about how they influenced you. So this is active participation, and I don't see a lot of people typing. Okay, here we go. So we'll hear some samples, since I don't think the public audience can see the chat. Board Member Booth, would you share what you've written?
You bet. I'm still typing. Mrs. Parmela Higley was in her last year of teaching before retirement when she taught me in the 5th grade in Paul, Idaho. And she was just the most caring, interested teacher in a little small town school. She knew everything about me, everything about my family. A year after I had gone on from 5th grade, she was still interested when our family was moving to Utah, and came to our home with a farewell gift to send me on my way to Utah. And without any question, after all these years, it's been quite a few years since 5th grade, the minute someone says who was the most influential teacher, my mind goes to the 5th grade. You would think with all the other things that I've done in my life that, I mean, certainly there were other fantastic teachers, but for some reason she just cared and thought I was really wonderful. And that has stuck with me since those many years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Board Member Norton, would you mind sharing?
You bet. At that lovely age of middle school, at Dixie Middle School, I was no different than all the others, and kind of bratty and, you know, all those wonderful things. But I had a middle school teacher by the name of Mrs. Marilyn Wenzel, who, through using great literature, taught us to appreciate words and combining words together, and made me care about the words that I used when I wrote. And for the first time in my life, I learned to love writing. And I continue to use it to this day.
Thank you, Board Member Norton. Board Member Hutchings?
Sure. I put Mrs. Gordon, who is my 4th grade teacher. And that was a really challenging year for me because I had a baby sister that passed away during the school year. And I just remember how she took care of me while I was in school and recognized what I was going through and what my needs were, and helped me continue having some normalcy in my school days while I was going through a really rough time.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll end with Board Member Moss. And thank you, everybody, for your input. I love that Board Member Moss thought of college professor. Go ahead, Board Member Moss.
Well, mine was Chauncey Riddle. I don't know if others know him, but he, last piece of advice I got from my dad before he passed away was to take Chauncey Riddle, because he'd stretch me, and he did. So he was my sophomore philosophy 110 professor, and he really just challenged us to think deeply about the principles we held and how they apply, and how you sort out who you are in daily life given what your principles are. So it made me think more deeply than anybody else had.
Thank you so much. And I was going to end there, but I don't know if you can all see Board Member Hanson's. I think that's a good place that you all have shared such beautiful and amazing things about your teachers. But Board Member Hanson, will you share?
There we go. Yeah, I had a high school teacher, George Albert Cheever. He was getting on in years, was kind of a crusty old guy. They helped me really believe in myself, and actually helped me in a drafting class they took from him draw the house plans for a house that my parents built. And the walls lined up and everything worked. And one of his most important tips, you couldn't see into the bathroom from the front door. So he made sure that I did a good job of designing the house. But thanks to him and a lot of other teachers that helped me along the way.
Thank you all for sharing. There's so many great stories, and maybe throughout the day, those that didn't get to share could share, take some time. Oops. Having the same problem Kathy did. Here we go. You know, my husband, he likes car racing, and he brought home this cartoon the other day, thought it was so appropriate, and I'll just read it in case you can't see it. It says, "Great job on that algebra lesson. Just hang in there through English and you're off to lunch." And then the caption is, "Victorville School District implements pit crews for teachers." So I was thinking, as board members and staff, how we're serving as pit crews for the educators and staff out in our schools. And it helped me think about policy levers. We've talked about working conditions as being one of the chief causes of retention or teachers leaving. We know when there's great leadership in schools and working conditions are right, teachers have the resources that they need, we're more likely to retain them. And when those things are not in place, it's often the top reason for leaving. So as we think about the policy levers that we put in place, what can we do to impact working conditions and influence recruitment and retention? I so appreciate the board members who ask those questions often about how will this impact the classroom, how will it impact the teacher, and for the teachers and educators on the board who know firsthand how our policies might impact them. And then also how, this is what board member Davis talked a little bit about, how might we improve public perception and messaging around the need to support our educators in order to improve student outcomes. So that messaging is key. And sometimes it's not so much about the things that we see, but just the feeling that teachers have about their intentions. And I think our teachers are always well-intended. So I want to end by highlighting one of my teachers. This is Mert Lovell, and a couple of our board members know Mr. Lovell. He wanted to be called Mert. It's what all the kids called him. I'm a graduate of the proud class of 1976 of Dixie High School. And Mert was known for just caring about the one, and he used great humor. In his passing, his daughter asked people to put favorite memories on Facebook. And then we have a class Facebook page where I asked for the same thing so that I could hear how my classmates experienced their time with Mert. And there were so many stories that I had no idea. Things like one of my classmates who was in an abusive situation in her home, and Mr. and Mrs. Lovell took her in and let her live with them for a couple of months until the situation could be worked out. Or a girl who moved from a rival school and felt ostracized until Mert used humor and really helped her feel accepted. And there was just a whole list of stories of how he, behind the scenes, so quietly cared for the one. One that came to mind was a student that I remembered as a track star. And his story was that he was very fidgety in class, and Mr. Lovell, who was helping with the track team, told him he should try out for track. He had so much energy, and he said, "I can't afford track shoes." And track shoes showed up on his desk the next day. So those are the kinds of things that sometimes go unnoticed because they're done quietly, but it's caring for the one. And I just want to wrap my arms around our education community digitally and thank them so much, give them a big group hug, and tell them thank you for caring for the one, because it truly will help students like Andrea reach the American dream. It will help students like my classmates overcome barriers that they have to a successful education. And I truly believe it will help them with mastery, autonomy, and purpose by letting each individual student know that we care about them, we see them, we hear them. And I want that our teachers, our educators, to know that we hear them, we see them, and we appreciate and love them. Thank you. And that concludes my section of the board meeting. Chair Huntsman, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Superintendent. Board members, at this time, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back on line at 10:30 sharp, and we'll go right to our general consent calendar. So 10-minute break.